Let's try this again. I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission, and pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view and participate in this meeting while in progress may do so by visiting the agenda on the town website, where you'll find information to call in. A record of this meeting shall be posted to continue our regular practice of doing so. Speaking of regular practice, we will start as always with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
Jeff Bryan.
Emily Winter.
William Payne.
Rebecca Longwell.
All right. And first up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40. This public hearing of the Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. It is to consider a notice of intent filed by Dillis and Roy Civil Design Group for David Spartner for the proposed The Woods at Farm Road construction, consisting of 2 single-family dwellings, private well, septic systems, and associated infrastructures, subject to a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, along with the removal of the existing farm structures on the site. The location of the proposed project located Assessor's Map, Parcel 3.C, Lot 72. Do we have an update on this, or is there anyone here from the applicant?
We do. Just very quickly, I just want to go over and remind everyone or the participants for some guidelines. If you would like to speak, please utilize the chat function or your raise hand function to address the board. Please remain on mute until you have been addressed by the board chair. I will be monitoring to make sure that we're capturing individuals, and the chair will call on you, or I will note to the chair that you would like to speak. Participants are also required to display their first and last name. So if you have not done so, could you please update your participant name to your first and last name. Regarding the brief update, the commission, a few of the commission members were on site to carry out a site visit, and Seth had kindly staked out the structures, the limit of work, which is the line of erosion control, and the septic system, as well as the property line. Okay, I will pull that up in a minute. I apologize. The property line that is closest to and shared with the Bolton Conservation Trust parcel. And I will, I guess, leave it up to the commission if they want to provide comments of what they discovered while they were there. Seth did provide us a notice of, or a documentation of the comments that were made while on site, including the erosion control to be used and the extent of work, and some seating that had also been discussed at the past meeting on January 5th. And I believe Seth is present.
Good evening, commission members. Seth Donahoe. If you'd like me to address those comments in our site walk, I'd be happy to do so.
That would be excellent if you could, Seth, quickly.
Great. So at the last meeting, we had verbally agreed to 3 items. And as Rebecca outlined, one of them is we had called for a hay bale and silt fence at the limit of work, the erosion control barrier. You requested that be swapped to a wattle and silt fence or a compost sock and silt fence. Depending on availability, they could use either. So we've put in writing that that is an agreeable change. The other item was that there are some 3-to-1 slopes around the perimeter of the septic system, and south of Unit 1. So we've sent over a conservation and wildlife seed mix that's proposed in that area. That's intended to be a very low maintenance cover there that will provide some variety to the area and basically serve as a transition between the natural areas of the site and the developed areas. And the final things, within the rain garden, there were 2 plants. Well, the peer reviewer had approved them. Commission member Winter had asked that we swap them for native plants, and we have provided specifications for those. A red osier dogwood and a Joe Pyeweed are proposed. So the Joe Pyeweed will provide a lot of summer and late season blooms, and the red osier dogwood provides some interest in the winter months as well. That summarizes the changes. Those of you who had an opportunity to see the site, I'd be happy to address any comments that we did not get to see while we were out there. And other than that, I'll let Attorney DeShanes cover anything that I missed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Thank you for your time. I don't have anything to add. I agree with Seth that at the last meeting, the board did ask for some specific changes, which we have agreed to in Seth's letter. And so we're happy to answer any further comments or questions the board might have.
Okay. Are there any initial questions from board members currently?
It said, it said on the introduction note on the that there are 2 houses. There are 4 going up there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because it says 2 single-family units in the thing. So just so I'm clear that there were 4 going up there.
Yes, and that's something that the applicant's representative had touched upon last time, that Brian actually highlighted as well, that it is 4 units with the septic and associated infrastructure and driveways or access, and the removal of the existing infrastructure there. However, the reasoning why it was filed the way it was is because only 2 of the units fall within direct jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So that was the reasoning, unless Seth can correct me if I'm wrong, that was given last time. So I believe we're still following through with that definition.
No, that's correct. That's a summary of what we talked about.
Okay.
I know we had talked in the last meeting about maintenance of the meadow, and I think I went back and forth, and then finally landed on yes to the yearly mowing. Rebecca, you had brought up a good point about the invasive growth on that property and maintaining that area to eliminate that growth. I am curious how other commission members feel about a demarcation of the manicured or mowed lawn, not manicured, mowed lawn and the yearly mowed meadow. And if we want some kind of, I know we had talked about in the last meeting, somebody had mentioned stakes, but maybe something more permanent, like a split rail fence, something kind of natural. And it doesn't have to go across the entire thing, but just kind of a visual separation between the 2 areas, and making sure that the HOA, the bylaws for the HOA include the specific maintenance of that area, and that it is not to be mowed more than once a year. And if there's any specific time of year it should be mowed.
Emily, I know, just a note, at times applicants have also used boulders since they are readily available in New England. So that may be an option as well, unless the commission prefers the split rail fence. Where, maybe this is a question for Seth, not necessarily the commission, but where on site, or Emily, I guess, and then Seth could confirm, where on site were you thinking this would be placed?
I mean, I think if we're looking, and it doesn't necessarily have to cut straight across the property, But I do think that the lawn should probably be maintained up to the well in case there's ever any maintenance or, I don't, honestly, I would like to see it as, you know, as close to the buildings as possible, just because we are inside the buffer. But out of, you know, understanding for any well maintenance or anything that might arise and somebody needs to find the well cap, if they, you know, I'm not sure how other people feel on the commission, but would it make sense to allow that maintained yard, you know, go up to the well, and then maybe it kind of comes across? Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
I see what you're saying, Emily.
I believe we did in fact discuss this with the commission in the past, and and Seth, please verify. But I believe we added to our plans a proposed demarcation of the of that area, and I've seen it in the draft decision as well. It requires 2 by 2 by 4 foot wooden stakes at 20-foot intervals, marked with a paint or flagging. And I thought we had talked about a like a badge that would delineate the no disturb zone. And Seth, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we show that on the plan?
Actually, not on this project yet. So the intent is, I believe if you go to the last sheet, Rebecca, or the second to last sheet, there's the erosion control plan. The one prior to that will have the limit of work, and that would coincide with the essential limit of yard area. I would say it would make sense on this site that it would go from just behind the well area to the nearest lot corner where there's the outfall for the drainage structure. And that would probably be sufficient. The rest of it is essentially occupied by the slope for the septic. We can certainly demarcate the property line so that there's no worry of future encroachment, but to put permanent markers in that area would seem kind of redundant.
I liked Rebecca's idea if there are boulders as excavation is going on.
So is that yellow line essentially where you're talking about, Seth?
That would be correct.
Okay. And so Emily, you're now suggesting the boulders versus a stake with the sign on it?
Well, what was the size of the stake? I think, Seth, did you comment on that?
What Attorney DeShane read them from the draft order. Was that correct, Doug?
Draft order?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think they're 4 by 4 and they're a couple feet above grade, with the option to put, you have your standard Bolton, I don't know if it says resource area beyond this point or limit of work or anything like that. But I mean, we could put anything on those that you'd like, but as Rebecca mentioned, it is likely that boulders probably in the 200-pound plus range will be encountered during excavations. And if they are, they could be kept on site and be a bigger, possibly more permanent marker than a wooden stake in that location.
What are the signs made out of? I can't, I'm looking at, I don't know. Seth, do you know off the top of your head what section that's in?
I do not, because I don't have it in front of me. If Attorney does, he may, but in the past, like on other jobs, I believe Brian has one right there.
A tin or a metal almost.
Okay. I don't personally have any issue with that. I just, my whole interest in this is that the regular mowing has a limit and we allow that back meadow to naturalize and it gets mowed once a year. That's kind of, and if the signs work for everybody else on the commission, I'm totally fine with that. And I actually think it's a little more obvious if there's a sign, but I also, from an aesthetic standpoint, or a fence or boulders are nice too, just something that, separates those two spaces.
Some-
Historically, we've actually given them people the option, depending. And unless anybody's opposed, I would see doing the same here. That any one of those three we discussed tonight, the split rail, the boulders, or the posts with the signage, I think any one of those three would work, and I would leave it up to them to decide,
I agree with that.
if that makes sense.
I agree
Okay.
with that, Brian.
I just want to clarify one point, Brian, while we're
Please.
looking at this, which I think it was something I was confused about as well when I first went out to the site during the ANRAD process. When we were out on site, you saw the blue flagging associated with the wetland line, which does extend through the meadow area. However, this is our lot line right here, so actually the majority of that meadow is actually on the Bolton Conservation Trust parcel. Just for orientation purposes, I did want to highlight that. I think it's still important to memorialize what areas we're talking about, but I did just want to highlight the difference in terms of area and parcel ownership here.
I noticed that this earlier today. I was looking at the GIS map, and I do think that it's important to still have that, continuation so that there isn't, any yard maintenance going on that conservation trust land as well. And maybe if there is signage incorporated, maybe it's specific, conservation trust land, or I don't know. But I think a new property owner might not know that that portion is, not part of the property, or if the house resells down the road. So.
Absolutely. I just wanted to highlight that for orientation purposes, but I agree. We've seen it already, and it's important to make sure it's relayed to the residents and community members.
So basically, the Conservation Trust is to the left of that line you just outlined, right, Rebecca? That's the property
It
we're
is.
talking.
Can you
That's
see
the part
my
of the property.
cursor?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
So it's all where my cursor is right now.
All that is all Conservation Trust.
Yes.
Okay. So all that would be left just to naturalize, mowed once a year like we do at Bowers.
As a meadow. Yep.
And is Conservation responsible for mowing?
They're responsible for their property. I don't know.
So
What
we're
kind of-
probably responsible for mowing down in there. Somewhere else.
The conservation trust is, I don't know
Right,
what.
right. But not
what
the
they're-
not the developers.
No.
We're just asking the developers not to encroach on that particular. We had put some signage along there that says, don't mow here, or whatever, whoever's doing the maintenance of the 4 units. Right? Yep.
Yeah, our conservation land
Makes sense to
beyond
me.
this point.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, as we look at it, are people comfortable with the limit of work being matching the boundary, basically? Just for ease of writing it up to a certain extent, that what's marked as the limit of work will also be the conservation land boundary markings going forward.
And that's the limit of the lawn.
Yes.
And beyond that, out to the limit, out to their property, it's mowed once a year. That small little strip.
And that also includes the septic area, but to Seth's point, they're not going to be putting signage on top of the septic area, which I would say is expected.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Hey Seth, what will you plant on top of the septic system? Just wildflowers, basically?
It should just be lawn.
Lawn.
That should be,
That
yeah,
they'll mow.
the side slopes would be preserved as the conservation wildlife mix.
Yep.
And then the top area should just be lawn in case
Okay.
there's ever a need to inspect it or
Yep.
do anything up there.
That makes sense.
The only
Seth?
other, oh, sorry, Rebecca.
That's okay. During the last meeting, one or a couple of the commission members brought up, there are other places in town where there is basically the mix that you're seeding the side slopes of the septic with, that actually is on top of the septic as well. And it's not a manicured lawn, but it's more of a wildlife meadow wildflower mix. And I think it still serves the purpose for wildlife. And it was brought up last time to do the same on top of this septic. So I was curious, your client is not for that, it sounds like, just on the side slopes.
Well, truthfully, the system is, it's a condominium system, and it has an advanced nitrogen treatment system in it, and it requires at minimum an annual inspection.
Okay.
And it would be ideal if that area remains accessible, just for ease of seeing what's going on there.
Okay, so then it sounds like the maintenance, because it sounds as though for the meadow, you cut it once a year or maybe twice a year. That wouldn't necessarily line up with inspections, is what you're saying.
The area just needs to be fully accessible, so it would necessitate regular mowing. The side slopes are totally fine to do in the seed mix, but it should be essentially a lawn on top.
Okay.
I just have a question about some of the things that we brought up last meeting, as far as HOA docs go down the road. And we had talked, I don't know if we ever finalized or confirmed that there would be no pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers used on the lawn, and that would make it into the HOA documents. Did we get a confirmation from the applicant on that?
So I'll leave that to Seth, but in terms, that can certainly be a condition that the commission puts, that it shall be in perpetuity on the property. And I believe at the last meeting, the applicant was amenable to including that in the HOA documents, and then have it a condition that the commission will review those documents to just confirm that it's in there. But I would let Seth speak to that to confirm.
Yeah, I'll let Attorney DeShanes address that, as I see him nodding his head, and that's his department, actually.
Yes, we did agree that if that was a condition of the from the commission, that we can adhere to that, and we will make it part of our maintenance program, which will be in the condominium docs. And I did suggest that I would provide those documents to the commission or its agent for a review to be sure that it's in there, but I can assure you we will put it in there.
Other initial questions from commission members? Rebecca, did you have additional thoughts on this?
I did not, and I just had, I guess, confirmation, or was looking for confirmation for exactly what Seth's letter had noted. So my questions are addressed at this time.
Okay. Are there any members of the public here to question or comment on this particular hearing this evening?
Look. I see no raised hands. And I see no one in the chat.
Okay. All right. So the NOI as it stands right now, I don't know if it already has these things included, but it seems like these were the things we had agreed upon were the use of straw wattles or compost stalks instead of the hay bales, right?
Yep.
The planting mix for the septic slopes.
Yes.
That switched to the native species in the rain garden. And then we had this evening a talk about the demarcation of the meadow and how that can be done. And then conditions we might want to add in perpetuity, which I know we've discussed. Does anybody, have I missed anything, or is there anything else we needed to see added? Or Rebecca, am I not thinking of anything? I was going to say, Attorney Shane, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to raise two questions. Rebecca was kind enough to share with us a draft decision, and we were fine with it. I did have one comment and one question. The comment is, I just want to be sure, and my client wants to be sure, that the way this is drafted, and it speaks about supporting infrastructure as part of the description. You'll recall that in working with the zoning board and the town's peer review consultant, the peer review consultant brought up an issue with a drainage structure that's located in the roadway adjacent to the project. And the peer review consultant, as well as the DPW, suggested that it might be nice if my clients would repair that drainage structure in the street. We agreed with that, and it is part of our comprehensive permit. So we will be just replacing or repairing that structure that exists in the street. I just want to make sure that the language in the draft orders covers that work. It does relate specifically to supporting infrastructure, but I just wanted the commission to be sure that, or Rebecca to be sure that it was, you felt that that would cover it. That work's going to be done under the supervision of your DPW folks, but it is within 100 feet of wetlands, and so technically we will need an order of conditions. So I just, again, want to make sure that we're all comfortable that that language, supporting infrastructure, covers it. We're fine with it. I just like the commission to verify that. So that's my one question. And my one comment is, I noticed that in the draft order, and I presume this is a typical condition of this commission, and I see it all the time, we are going to provide you reports on progress. However, it says that the site supervisor has to be either a surveyor or a professional registered engineer. And I guess I would just ask if the commission would consider adding to that list a state licensed professional contractor. Because the reality is that our state licensed professional contractor is going to be the person on the ground during construction, and they are a licensed professional. So we're just wondering if we could add that to the list. It would seem a shame to have to hire a surveyor or a professional engineer to report on status when in fact our licensed contractor will be on site almost every day.
So Brian, if I may, can I just ask a question or two?
Please. Yes.
So Attorney Duchesne, just to clarify, the drain, I will add specific language to that because I think it's important to highlight it, although I did think that it was covered under the supporting infrastructure. I think it's important to highlight it because is it or is it not within the road right of way?
It's not on our property. It's actually
Okay.
located entirely in the road right of way.
Okay, so then I do need to explicitly include that
Okay.
so that it's incorporated appropriately,
Thank you.
both for the applicant and the town, specifically the DPW. Knowing that, I would pose the question to Seth, is there any reason to extend the erosion control to incorporate that?
Seth had to run to another meeting.
Oh, okay.
So if you need him, he asked me to text him.
Okay. So
Well,
I guess
Rebecca, we could certainly provide erosion control just
Right.
along the road right of way, although I think our proposed hay bales, as you can see, it curves when it heads over towards Berlin Road. It does take a 90-degree turn and runs parallel with the Berlin roadway. The drainage structure, I believe, is to the direct left. Yeah, just a little lower.
yeah.
So I think it's somewhere in there. So it would seem that those hay bales that erosion control will work. but certainly someone's going to come out and inspect it. And you've left the ability within the order to call for an extension if we need it. So when you inspect them, if that line's not, high enough along the road, we could certainly extend it to make sure that it covers. But I do think in fact, I think that might have been reason that Seth ran it up along the roadway as he did.
It's possible. So what I would suggest to the commission is actually for the final plans, I would change the spec from, which needs to be done anyways, from the hay bales to straw wattles or composite sock. And I would also at the same time incorporate the location of that structure. And if it is in fact outside of the proposed erosion control, I would just extend the erosion control around that, and that should be fairly simple to do. And inclusive on that, there should also be a note stating that the limit of work will be, or the edge of maintained meadow will be staked out to some nature as well, because as we all know, people on site will be looking at the plans, not necessarily the order of conditions, even though it's a requirement for those to be on site typically. So I would suggest the commission to do that. Additionally, I have no concerns with the swapping of the land surveyor for an engineer or a wetland scientist. And the reason being is those are the concerns in the jurisdiction of the commission. It's up to the commission if they're comfortable using the licensed site contractor, but that's typically in the boilerplate conditions that the commission issues to protect the interests, and to have someone, not saying the site contractor is not, but to have someone explicitly there for the wetlands protection, whether it be the engineer or a wetland scientist. But again, I'll leave that up to the commission, obviously, but those are just my outstanding comments. Other than that, I'm comfortable with the draft. And I would just have the commission request an updated plan with those couple items to then incorporate into the order if the commission so wishes to issue an order.
Where in the conditions, Rebecca, is the note about the engineer? And I'm just trying to understand what does that apply to the duration of the job daily? Having somebody on site where, I just want to read that one. Sorry.
It's number 4.
It's under section 4 under site supervisor.
Okay.
Or consultant. It states when required by the commission, the site supervisor shall be a registered professional engineer or land surveyor who shall be present throughout the construction of the entire project or provide oversight of the project on a weekly basis and shall provide progress reports to the commission as detailed.
Okay, so this isn't requesting that they're there full-time 7 days or 5 days a week. This is doing weekly check-ins and reports of storm drainage and wetlands. I mean, that's pretty standard, isn't it?
Yep.
I don't think that's a big or unreasonable request.
I'm reading through it to see, because it does say they need to be present throughout construction of the entire project.
But it also
Or
says
provide oversight. No, that's right.
maintenance.
Project on a weekly basis. All right.
I mean, typically you would, with the wetlands, you would have a licensed professional, not a construction supervisor per se, but you'd have an engineer or a wetland scientist performing those weekly reviews of the wetlands and the stormwater systems.
Makes sense. Rebecca, in the past, have we ever change this? I'm trying to think, this hasn't come up in the past. Like, I know you said this is kind of boilerplate that we put in the, in there, but have we made that exemption in the past?
No, but that's not to say past practice necessarily is correct, but in this circumstance, the way it's worded, it says when the commission requires it. And I would say, I think the language is there to support if the commission is requiring it or requesting it, but I think it's also there in place until that is requested, if that makes sense. So I don't think it's necessary to remove it. In the past, we have strengthened it by requiring a professional wetland scientist be added to that list as well, which I think is reasonable, but I think the language is there so that the commission, if they need to remind a contractor or have work reviewed by those professionals, then that tool is there.
We're not talking about having a professional on site 40 hours a week.
No.
No, just somebody who'll go in there, inspect what's being done, and then get back to us. That's what it seems to say to me.
Yes.
And I think it's highly appropriate to have a wetland professional as opposed to a construction guy who's licensed. They're gonna have a construction license person there anyway to do this work, right?
Right.
I think it's appropriate, and I don't think it's, I don't know how expensive it is, but you know, somebody's got to, a third party has to justify that anyway. So that's all. That's my thought. But
All right.
Okay.
So it seems, and I'll let Bill Payne weigh in if he would like to, but it seems like the commission would be hesitant to actually change that wording at this time. But that, again, it's only when required. It does not mean automatically.
I like the fact, Brian, it's an independent review also. It's a third party review.
May I ask you something, Brian?
Go ahead, please.
Could you just clarify when it is required? I guess that's the, I can't say this word, ambiguity. I got it right. Go ahead.
And Brian, if I may, that language is purposefully there for the commission to establish it. It can be established during the pre-construction meeting. It can be established during the project at a later date, or it can be established by the applicant as well, noting that there needs to be more oversight and noting to the commission, suggesting, you know what, I need to have more people out here, which is rare, but that's forward thinking and at times is necessary.
No, I generally don't have a problem with that. Okay, it's more, okay, if we're in the middle of a drought, okay, in the summertime, I don't want to have, okay, Seth come out for, $300 a week to write a report to say that, the silt fence is up and, okay, and everything's great, that's all if there's an issue.
I guess what I would say, Bob, is we're kind of left with three options. Either we don't require anybody to ever go out there, we require that somebody's there the full time, or we say, if we need somebody, we have the right to send somebody out there. Does that make sense? I mean, what are my other options? Yes. I'm not going to limit our oversight, and I'm not going to say they need to be there full time, which is not exactly what you would want. I think my only real option is to leave it as written.
So I agree with box number 3, okay? But I'm just not sure that that's what that says. If you're assuring me that that's what that says, I guess I can't get my arms around the verbiage. Okay,
we could always send Rebecca out there once a week,
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
time, yeah.
In light of that discussion, I guess Bob and I shared sort of the same concern, but now that you guys have described it, that you're not requiring one of those people to be on site every day and, necessarily send like Bob said, have our engineer go out and write a $300 or $500 report every week. But that you're leaving it open for the commission to require it as necessary. I too am comfortable with the language. And if you want to add a wetland scientist as a third option to us, then that's only beneficial to us. It allows us you know, we could either have the surveyor, whatever, the professional engineer
Yeah.
or the wetland scientist. We'd appreciate that. That just gives us more options. Thank you.
Sure.
I mean, it would seem to give us more options too. I would be fine adding other possible professionals to it, but
Okay.
Brian,
Good.
if there aren't other questions by the commission, we are running over on time. But it sounds like I need to add a few more things to the draft decision that we've discussed this evening. It sounds as though the applicant will be providing us with the final revision of the plan so that that can be incorporated in the draft decision. With all those being considered, I don't know if the commission wants to potentially continue it. I know we have a meeting scheduled for Thursday. However, I don't know if the final revision of the plans would be ready by then. So the following meeting after that would be February 2nd.
all right.
Can we
Well,
close the public hearing?
That's
We
what
can't
I was.
Sorry, we
I was
can't
gonna-
accept the final revised plans until, or we can't close, or the commission wouldn't be mindful to close before receiving the final revision of plans, because then they wouldn't be able to accept that final revision. And same thing with the draft decision.
Bob, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Bob, can we commit Seth to get that plan done in 2 days?
I can commit that. I don't know if Seth can.
Well, what I was gonna say, well, can we continue for 2 days? We'll try to get it in the next 2 days, and then if for whatever reason it's not, at that point in time, we'll have that discussion. Should we just?
And we'll
close
just
vote,
continue
or-
it to
Yeah.
February 2nd.
We would
All right.
appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
Um,
I'd appreciate
so-
that.
And then in that case, you're amenable to us continuing this until our next public meeting, which is Thursday, January 21st.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that the commission continue the public hearing for the Woods at Farm Road, assessor's map and parcel 3.C lot 70. Next public meeting, Thursday, January 21st, 2021 at, is there a good time, Rebecca?
7.
We'll do the first, beautiful, at 7 o'clock. Do I hear a second for that?
Second,
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jeff Bryant,
aye.
Emily Winter,
Aye.
William Payne,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rebecca, thank you for your help.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Take care. Okay, are you ready for us to go on, Rebecca? All right. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing regarding a notice of intent for the proposed construction of 3 single-family homes, widening and paving of an existing gravel driveway to be located at Century Mill Road, map 3.D, parcel 75. All right, is the applicant here this evening, or do we have an update, Rebecca?
The update is we have received, which I forwarded to you all, some calculations regarding the 2 depressional areas, and the calculations were specific to the applicant providing information to prove whether or not the depressional areas are subject to isolated land, subject to flooding regulations or definitions. Additionally, they supplied this colored map, which under a bylaw is actually required. However, this is also a revised plan showing exactly the areas that they had provided information on. And before I realized Scott Hayes is present, I believe, to talk about this. I'm not seeing any other members of your team. However, I did just want to highlight for the commission that we did receive a quote for the peer review from BSC Group. So that is also something the commission should vote on this evening. But I will hand it over to Scott Hayes at this time.
There's another member of the team present. That's me.
Yeah.
Matt Budsky, I'm here as counsel for the applicant. And yes, Scott is here. Thank you, Scott, for finishing up your other hearing and managing to sign in. The plan that you're looking at, and I'll just give a very brief overview, and then I'm going to hand off to.
Excuse me, Matthew, can you just introduce yourself again? You are.
I'm Matthew Watsky, W-A-T-S-K-Y.
Okay. And you are here representing the applicant?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, perhaps I should have sent you an email to give you a heads up on that.
No, I just want to make sure that I'm documenting it properly. Thank you.
So the plan that you have in front of you was prepared with the idea that that as the commission has had the drainage reports analysis that Scott's presented previously, with one of them from November 22nd of 2020, and the others for December 10 of 2020, both of which lead to the conclusion that the two areas are not jurisdictional under the Concom's bylaw rules, because neither area has an average depth at least or greater than 6 inches. The applicant, though, had Scott prepare this plan that we'll review with you in the interest of trying to present something to the commission that would, I don't know, in essence, concede jurisdiction rather than go through the peer review process, which we think would result in a conclusion that there is no jurisdiction and the areas could just be filled. We focused on what we perceived as the commission's primary concern, is that filling in these areas and putting the houses here would result in some excess volume of water being displaced from the site and flowing somewhere. And so with that as a concern, this plan is showing mitigation for that. So you have the 2 houses being proposed in the areas that, as we have calculated, are not qualified as isolated land subject to flooding under either the state or the local bylaw rules. And the mitigation for it are the 2 areas that are sort of shown in orange in the middle of the site. I don't know if yeah, we go that one, and the other one to the right of it. So those areas would be excavated to create the additional volume for flood storage within the bordering land subject to flooding. So I'll let Scott go ahead and take you through the details of it. But the idea of this was, let's try to address the commission's concern, which is about having floodwaters that would otherwise be held within the isolated areas, even though they're not jurisdictional. Go ahead and mitigate for that and see if we can just find a way to get to yes and move forward without having the peer review. So I'll hand off to Scott. Here we go.
Good evening. Hi. Just to kind of go through the process here. You know, we looked at the depressions A and B. Depression A is on lot 2. I don't know if you can see my pointer now. At any rate, lot 2 is this long, elongated depression. We call depression A for the purposes of our analysis. And we went out to look at it and observe it directly. And it's a large flat area with a few areas that are a little bit deeper than others. It's a little vexing with respect to, I think if you were going to micro-analyze those areas, you'd have, as opposed to a single depression, you'd evaluate 2 or 3 or 4 sort of isolated areas. I mean, the issue with those areas is the bottom is very flat. So even when you do get inundated with water, the water spreads out so far, you never achieve any significant depth. So running it through a 100-year storm model, it didn't really produce any results of significant standing water. And in order for these areas to actually be jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act statute, is clear that they're not. They need to fill to a depth of about 1.5 feet, each of them would, from the bottom elevation, which is it's inconceivable to occur from rainfall or from groundwater based on the test data we have and applying stormwater models to it. So, but with respect to the bylaw, applying 7 inches of rain and evaluating it for an average depth of 6 inches over 1,000 square feet, it's a little more difficult to kind of evaluate. So for the purposes of the analysis, I looked at these areas in the adjacent floodway, the FEMA base flood elevation on the adjacent floodway, which is actually bordering land subject to flooding, not associated with these areas, is that elevation 310. And if we apply elevation 310 to these depressions and calculate the volume that we're losing by site activities, we end up with zero loss of elevation of any volume below elevation 310 in depression A on lot 2, and in depression B associated with lot 2, we have a small portion of depression B lost on lot 2 in the area of the corner of the dwelling, and then on lot 4 substantially, there's a substantial area, a substantial depth. The average elevation in these areas is about 309.7, 309.8 for bottom elevation. We're looking at, an elevation peaking at 310, so they're relatively large areas with not substantial depth. So, but for the purposes of addressing the potential impacts with respect to the bylaw definition, we eliminated any activity within depression A or any alteration below elevation 310 in depression A. And on depression B, we calculated the volume below elevation 310 and that's proposed to be filled associated with development of these lots, and replicated that in excess of that volume on lots 4 and lots 3 in those orange areas to be graded below elevation 310 to create volume in excess of what is filled in those areas. That was the approach we took. It's really, we took that approach notwithstanding that those areas are applicable subject to the bylaw anyway. So that was the approach of this plan, an attempt to resolve those isolated areas so we can move forward.
Okay. Any initial questions or thoughts from other commission members?
So based on the data we had seen earlier, Brian,
Yes.
the bylaw of needing 1,000 square feet and average of 6 inches, I believe depression B in that bottom left-hand corner, we were very close to that. And at that point, the depth, the height, the elevations 309.6 and 309.5, where you were talking about an average of being 309.7, 309.75. That may be correct up in the upper right-hand corner of depression B, but that lower left-hand corner of depression B had ponding almost at 1,000 square feet and probably at the depth that's necessary, 6 inches already, that was visible from a rainfall that wasn't even a 5-year heavy storm. So I don't believe we need ponding to be able to show ponding over the full 26,000 square feet of depression B. It only needs 1,000 square feet. And I believe we saw that. I believe we have photos of that.
Yeah, there's no question there's areas where the depth exceeds 6 inches, but they're not substantial in area. So the average depth is not going to be consistently at that depth.
The key there is that both under the bylaw and under the wetlands protection regs, you have to have the average depth at 6 inches. And according to Scott's calculations, that depression B, its average depth would only be 0.35 feet, which is 3.6 inches. So about half the average depth that would trigger jurisdiction.
I don't think you need all of depression B to contain water, though. You need 1,000 square feet. Depression B is 26,500 square feet. You need a very much, you need a small fraction of that.
The way the bylaw definition is written, you require an applicant to determine the full extent of area that's covered by the puddle, and then it's only jurisdictional if the average depth of that puddle is 6 inches or greater. So you don't assert jurisdiction over the small portion of the puddle that's deeper than 6 inches and then not assert jurisdiction over the rest of it. You determine whether the entire area is jurisdictional or not.
Rebecca, does that fit with your understanding?
So one point of clarification. So we have, Scott Hayes is the engineer for this proposed project. Just a point of clarification. I would say it sounds as though the commission appreciates the amount of work that was put into these calculations and put into trying to offset, or an attempt to offset, using the areas highlighted in orange here. But at the last meeting, the commission requested a peer review. So it sounds as though at least one of the commission members still has a question, or it's very close, and they would like clarification of the two depressional areas. And that I'm certainly not going to do, and that was the purpose of the peer review. So I think that is still on the table. We have the quote, we have the consultant we would use, and the commission is still able, if they have questions about the calculations that are presented this evening that have been very graciously provided by the applicant and their representatives, it's still on the table to have a peer review to confirm exactly what we're talking about this evening from a third party who's not working for the applicant, to ensure that things are confirmed so that the commission is comfortable with it.
Thank you. Just kind of the way I was leaning myself. Curious if other commission members have other questions or thoughts right now on this.
I agree with what Rebecca just said, and I am curious if since initial DEP comments, has any of this information gone back to DEP?
I would inquire that to Matthew or Scott. Do you know if your client has submitted revised plans to DEP as they should be?
I don't know, Scott, do you know whether your calculations were provided to DEP?
Is Kyle on? Kyle McDonald?
I don't know.
I thought I saw him on earlier.
Goddard
I provided them to Goddard Consulting. I don't know that they were submitted to DEP or not.
Okay.
I presume that they were, but we need to confirm.
Okay, thank you. They just, for everyone on this meeting. So when plans are submitted to the Conservation Commission for revised plans or supplemental information, it should also be submitted by the applicant to DEP, and it typically is, but it's a valid question to bring up because at times you're getting to the public hearing and it's a little delayed, but good question.
Understood. I will certainly check with Goddard Consulting and find out what they did. I could see the potential that they didn't, because the areas we're talking about are clearly not DEP jurisdictional areas. and that's what the focus is, but we'll check on it. And I don't have any problem with sharing this kind of thing with DEP in any event.
I'm just curious if we have any updated comments, because their initial comments on this project was regarding these two areas. So now that there are new calculations and there's a new layout and there is new flood storage, I'm just curious what their updated comments are on that, because I believe that was one of their few comments, right, initially?
It was.
So I'd just like to know, if the updated plans were sent to them, did they have comments, updated comments, and what were they? Because we would take those into account too, as a commission.
So it sounds like then that the commission is still looking to request the peer review, which they can formally vote on this evening, and request the applicant to provide them with confirmation that they submitted the supplemental documentation that's been submitted to the commission and the plans, this recently revised set of plans to DEP. And then if in fact DEP has any follow-up comments specific to the revised plans.
I think that's an accurate guess. And again, we'll poll the commission soon to see if people are in agreement about moving forward with the third-party review. But before we do that, are there questions from the public, Rebecca, regarding this one, or comments?
Yes, Jim Garrity had a question.
Hi, just a question on the 200-foot riverfront buffer, the darker blue line, Rebecca, on the plan. So it's kind of a semicircle, if you will. If you could, yeah. So my question is, why doesn't that not extend down the length of the brook?
So part of the, or rather in the ORAD, this area is defined as a pond. So it would therefore end or terminate in this semicircle of a manner when it stops and starts ponding, and then it would start again when it forms the channel again.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm just questioning the definition of a pond, right? I would define that as the Danforth Brook. That water continually moves throughout the length of that. It's not ponding per se. It's part of the Danforth Brook, which is always moving. And that's there's a legal definition of a pond, and I don't think that meets the legal definition as described here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may I address the commission?
Please do.
I believe that was addressed in great detail in the ORAD that was filed. So that was evaluated at that time, and that was the 200-foot riverfront that was developed at that point.
Excellent. I still have questions about that ANRAD too, which I'm not sure if we've ever heard back from council on the validity of that original ANRAD for this. But are there any other comments, questions from the general public on the plans as they are in front of us tonight?
Yes. Hello?
Please.
This is Richard Davis, 185 Hudson Road. I'm still having difficulty navigating with Zoom. Who is Matthew Watsky? Is he part of the engineering firm? Is he part of Scott Hayes? I don't know what his role is in this meeting tonight.
He is representing the applicant.
I'm an attorney.
Oh, you're an attorney. Okay, good. Now I understand. The dates that were mentioned by Scott were November and December 10th. We had a lot of rain right before Christmas, and I know photographs were sent to you, of the ponding. And the ponding then was significantly more than it was on December 10th. I mean, just by orders of magnitude. Do you have those photographs, and could we look at those?
I do not have them readily available, unfortunately, but the commission has seen them and I have seen them.
Okay. I guess another, point of comment, Scott was saying something about one of the depressions, having a very flat bottom. Well, that shouldn't be a surprise. Earth moving equipment was in there for, quite a period of time doing work. And I have no idea if the soils that are there are exclusively native soils or not. But I would think that the percolability of that soil could have been changed by equipment moving around in there, doing whatever kind of grading that they were doing. We've all seen these photographs. And I think that's an important part of the overall consideration, of what's going on here. So.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Any other comments this evening? All right. Not hearing any. Sorry, I'm just reading through my notes. It looks like we're at a point where Rebecca, I'm assuming we'd want to possibly take a roll call vote to see if the commission is still in favor of hiring, is it BSG or BSC? I can never remember, their BSG group as a peer reviewer for this particular project.
PSC as in cat group.
P as in Paul?
B, sorry.
Sorry.
B as in boy, S,
I
C.
counted myself six times. Okay. In that case, I'd like to poll the commission on the hiring of a third-party reviewer, BSC Group, for the project on Century Mill Road. All those in favor of the hiring of this reviewer, I'm going to ask you to say aye, starting with Jeff Bryant.
Aye.
Emily Winter.
Aye.
William Payne.
Aye.
Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Okay, so this needs to be referencing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53G, and it also needs to reference the exact amount, which is quoted for $5,900. And this is also for a scope that is specific to the notice of intent submitted for the construction of 3 single-family homes with existing gravel driveway. Excuse me, specific to, though, the depressional areas noted as A and B on this plan. That was a lot.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. So all those in favor of us hiring a third-party reviewer under Mass General Law, Chapter 53G.
Chapter 44, Section 53G.
As stated, in the amount of approximately $5,900 from BSC Group, with the scope of their work specific to the NOI and the depressional areas that have been in discussion. Rebecca, does that basically cover the particulars of what I was looking for?
Yep.
Thank you. So all those in favor, again, Jeff Bryant.
Aye.
All right, Emily Winter.
Aye.
All right, William Payne.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, Rebecca.
Did you have a second on that, Brian? I'm sorry, but I just want to make sure we're administratively correct
Perfectly
here.
fine. Can I get a second for that roll call vote?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, shall we do it again? Jeff Bryant.
Aye.
Emily Winter.
Aye.
William Payne.
Aye.
And Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Brian, did you want to inquire to the applicant if they would like to continue, and not only for the peer review information, but also the potential comments from DEP, or just confirmation of receipt of the revised plans?
Yep. I would say that would be our February meeting, correct?
February 2nd, yes.
Thank you. All right. So for the applicants, if you heard Rebecca, would you be amenable to us continuing this until our next public meeting?
Yes, we'll agree to continue to February 2nd.
Perfect. Thank you. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Century Mill Road, map 3.D, parcel 75, until our public meeting scheduled for February 2nd, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. Do I hear a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jeff,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
and I am an I myself.
May I ask a quick question, Mr. Chairman?
Please do, yes.
I was wondering whether BSC had indicated when it expected to be able to turn around its findings to you after being notified that they've been chosen.
I can confirm that, but it seemed to be a fairly reasonable time frame when I was discussing it.
Okay, I just,
Yep.
if we don't have their report in hand by February 2nd, there's probably no sense in proceeding on February 2nd. So I'm hoping that they can turn it around in a week or so, and then we can have a hearing. Otherwise, we'll decide whether to ask for a continuance to get their report in, but would like not to have this posted further.
Sure, and I think to note, as the commission just voted, they have requested information directly from the applicant and potentially confirming, or not potentially, confirming whether or not it's been submitted and comments. So that can certainly be presented at the next meeting as well.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca, are you ready to move on? All right.
Okay.
The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue a public hearing for the consideration of the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation submitted by Nicole Hayes of Goddard Consulting on behalf of the property owner for the property located at 460 Main Street, Assessors Map 4.D, parcel 28. Is there anyone here this evening representing the applicant, or is there an update on this project?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mark Arnwood, Goddard Consulting is here. Nicole Hayes had another meeting tonight, and so she asked me just to attend to make sure there were no other questions with regards to the ANRAD. But my understanding is that the commission has walked the wetland flags. There were no issues with the locations. There were some requested changes to the plan, which have been made. The plan is signed and stamped and dated by the professional land surveyor. And I'm glad to field any other questions.
Okay, thank you for attending this evening. I was fortunate enough to go out on this site walk. I was going to say the flagging seemed to meet the contours. Everything by eye seemed to meet up, and some soil samples were actually taken during the site visit, and those seemed to confirm what we were seeing and how it was marked. So I do not have any additional questions at this point in time, but I'll open it up if other commission members have any initial thoughts, comments, questions.
I have one comment. I was able to get out this morning. I agree with Brian, the wetland flags in the field, and as what's shown on the plans, I agreed with that delineation. I do have one question, and Rebecca, this might be a question for you. The GIS map shows what looks like a little stream, and I apologize because I didn't see this until after I had conducted the site visit, but in the southeastern portion of the site, almost in the middle, north to south, but on the eastern side, the GIS map actually shows, and I do have a printout somewhere, shows a small stream. And I unfortunately I don't think I made my way to that part of the site this morning. And it could be a mistake, but I just wanted to bring it up because as I said, I unfortunately didn't notice it on the GIS maps until after my site visit, so I wasn't able to go take a look in that area. But I'm just curious if anybody else is aware of that and if it is actually something or if it is just a blip on the maps.
Emily, can you confirm that it's where my mouse or my cursor is?
No, it's actually inside the property line, and it's almost like it's like a curved shape like this. And if you look at the notation in the middle of the property,
Yeah.
so it's almost to the right of that, and it's like a backward C. And I printed this out, and I unfortunately think I left it downstairs, but let me see if I can find it.
Was that off of the USGS topography maps on Oliver?
Yes.
Okay,
And it appeared when I turned on the stream layer. So I messed around with the layers and tried to figure out what it was, and it turned off when I turned off streams.
Okay. So it sounds like then we may want to do a second site visit.
I'm so sorry. I really wish I could find this because I could show you exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm going to try and pull it up. Outside of that, did the commission have any questions while on site?
I did not.
I did not either.
All right, and I'll let you keep going with what you're going with, Rebecca. I'm not sure if anybody's here to comment on this from the public this evening, but we'll check that after.
It's Martha Remington. Can you hear me?
Yes, Martha.
I'm in a butter to this property. I've been here 41 years. Emily is correct that there is a small stream on the west boundary of this next to 470, which was the house that was burned where the Smiths live. This stream drains from a pond up in back of the Kane property toward the Boy Scout camp. I have an aerial photograph of that from decades ago, which might be, and I think I gave you a copy, Rebecca, for 460 files. If you didn't, I can get you a copy. And this, of course, the gas station used to be just like half an acre, and now it's been combined with a private Kane. One of the sons bought a house lot between the country cupboard and the Smith property and the gas station. So now it's 3 acres, but there is a stream and it's not necessarily intermittent. It goes under the road and then toward the wetland where Great Brook is. So I can, I'll give you a copy of that photo if you can't find it.
Martha, are you talking about the area between the gas station and the home that they burnt for the training?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what is shown here, actually.
Yes, it's a small stream and it's not necessarily intermittent if it was really dry, but the pond in the back is quite huge. And I'm not sure, I don't think that's on Kane property.
No, the pond is much further back. When we were on site, we did walk up to the ponding area just to ensure that there were no obstructions. Emily, I'm not seeing, I just pulled up USGS quickly. It's not to say that it's not there, again, because I was going very quickly, but I'm not seeing what you're referring to.
Do you want me, will you give me 30 seconds and I'll go grab what I have? Just so that if there is a question that we think we need a site visit, do you mind if I just grab that?
Yep.
I apologize.
That's fine.
Brian, in the meantime, do you want to address the minutes?
I'd want Emily to vote on them.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but this is a perfect time for Jeff Bryant and William Payne. If you have not read through the minutes, now is a perfect time to be reading through them, having those questions and spelling errors and scribbles ready to roll.
Okay. I found it.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's very hard to make out. I apologize. I don't know if, okay, let me see if I'm, so the yellow hatched portion is the property.
Yep.
And if you look at the eastern side, right here, there's a light blue line that's on the same layer as this stream here.
Can you hold it closer to the camera by any chance?
Yeah, I'm really,
I know it's hard.
I was holding it closer to the box, which I'm technologically disadvantaged here. Okay, so can you see that blue line?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's what is showing up on the GIS map, and it is on the same layer as the stream / wetlands that are being reviewed
Yeah.
in this
So is this,
application.
Emily, is this on the town website?
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Let me.
And Emily, did you say you spotted this water when you did your site walk? You could
I
see it?
didn't. I logged
Okay.
into the GIS after my site walk today because I just wanted to see what the maps were showing for that wetland area at the top of the hill.
Yep,
Because
yep.
I had also noticed a large pond on the adjacent property that the stream connected to the wetlands. And I wanted to kind of see how close that was to this property. And when I was doing that, I noticed that whatever that is on the eastern portion of the site, I did not go to that part of the property. And I also really couldn't figure out what the limits of the property line were when I was out there. So I was really just focused on the wetland flags. So I don't think I went over to that part of the property. I may have. I don't really, I kind of followed the wetlands, which go off onto the property to the south anyway.
Right.
So I don't think I ever made my way to that part of the property.
Okay, so I've found what you're talking about. So I can't confirm what that is. I'm displaying it currently.
Like an anomaly.
I'm not sure what that is.
So, and Mark, I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer this, but we, due to just a strange oddity, we actually have a meeting again in 2 nights. Would it be possible at all for us to continue this until Thursday night and then see if we can ask the applicant to at least get Rebecca permission to go out there, if not 1 or 2 of us, just to try to run out there in the next 2 days, just to confirm that there's nothing there, or just see if there is something there?
I have availability tomorrow, if that helps at all. Tomorrow.
I don't think we have an issue since you can hold the meeting on Thursday, going out there and taking a look at it. It looks like a GIS line that was drawn and was never connected to anything. So I don't believe there's an issue. Nicole, is that okay for Rebecca to be able to go out there? Nicole Hayes is now on the line.
Yes, hi, my name's Nicole from Goddard Consulting. Yes, that's not a problem. I could even meet you out there tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
I can send you an email, Nicole, first thing in the morning. I have a site visit at 9 o'clock, and I may have some availability just after that one, or else it will be in the afternoon.
Okay, that sounds good.
So I'll send you a confirmation email tomorrow morning.
Okay.
All right. So other than exploring that oddity, did anybody have any other significant questions, comments, or thoughts as to how everything had been delineated? Okay. In that case, with the applicant's permission, I'm going to make a motion that we continue the hearing for 460 Main Street, Assessor's Map 4.D, Parcel 28, until our next public meeting Thursday, January 21st, 2021 at 7:15 p.m. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jeff Bryant,
Aye.
Emily Winter,
Aye.
William Payne,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Great, thank you. And if, I know, Mark, you're the one who technically approved the continuation, but if one of you being the representative of the applicant can just email me confirming that you've requested that continuation until Thursday, January 21st, that would be great.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good night.
right. All right, Rebecca, are you ready to continue? Okay.
Yes, I'm there now.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so the Bolton Conservation Commission will now deliberate on the issuance of a decision regarding the notice of intent filed by David Russell of Turn Left LLC for the proposed Still River Commons, construction of 4 single-family dwellings, access driveway, and supporting infrastructure, subject to a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B. The location of this proposed project is located at Assessor's Map and Parcel 8.B, lots 32 and 33, formerly 8.B, lot 32. I will say I saw the draft decision that Rebecca had sent around. I didn't have any major issues or questions with it. You put in some of the points that Emily had brought up, which is kind of the Horsley Witten kind of unanswered questions and them asking us, saying that we should further delineate that. I didn't have really anything I needed to see amended for that or changed. Do other commission members have questions or thoughts on that draft order?
I agree, Brian. I thought I didn't have any comments, honestly, or anything that I thought needed to be added or changed to that letter.
Just a point of order, in a sense, I guess. I do realize we have a lot of participants currently still on the meeting, and I just want to remind those present that unless you are the board or our council, you must stay muted, as the public hearing was closed during the last meeting, and the commission can therefore not accept any further public comment, but we do appreciate you observing.
Rebecca, thank you for clarifying that. I probably should point out to those watching the draft decision that we're looking at right now would be for a denial, primarily based around us not being provided with the information we need regarding the NOI that's now before us. Just to keep you informed as to what it is we were looking at. And again, I don't really have any strong conditions or changes to it. I don't know, Bill or Jeff, if you have any strong thoughts.
No, I read it also, Brian. I understand what's there.
Okay.
I as well. I only had one little comment on like page 2 where it says the October 11th. It says depict the older wetland boundary. And I'm not sure if we should really be more specific about how old, or I don't know, but most of it sounded good. I just had a question about older wetland, what that actually describes. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with what's going on, what you've got going on here.
Okay. David McKay, would it be, does the chair need to read this draft decision in completion during the public hearing?
Nope.
Okay, so it's just.
I mean, the typical steps are one, that the commission would determine what the outcome of their deliberations are, and then the decision would follow from that. You have I mean, the issues were fairly straightforward in this instance, so you've got the draft decision, and you can proceed from there.
Thank you. So
I am.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rebecca.
No, please go ahead.
You, David.
I was going to say, if you want to finish your thoughts, David, please.
Oh, no, my only other, I was just looking for the reference that I think Mr. Bryan just mentioned a moment ago, with respect to the word older and the boundary. And I pulled it up, and I'm just reading it to see what the context is, to see if that can be better articulated. I think that's a quote from the Horsley Witten report as of October 11th, 2018.
It actually was a quote from there that was in there, but it just seemed, and it's not a big deal, but it just seemed, what you mean by older, anyway.
Yeah, and you're referencing the report, so we can always go back to that report to clarify the reference. I suspect that what they're referring to is the older order of conditions that for the single family home.
So the reason why that we drafted the decision the way that we did is just in the sense of we're in light of the conversations that were ongoing. And even during the last public meeting, the Conservation Commission again tried to request a peer review, and the applicant unfortunately was not willing to do so. So therefore, it seemed appropriate to draft it in this manner, as the commission seemed to be lacking the information they needed that they were requesting of the applicant to issue potentially or incorporate that into their decision.
Do we know offhand, because we've referenced the draft order this evening, is it something that we can post publicly or should post publicly? I mean, and to clearly say that it's a draft, but I'm just curious of neighbors who are interested in the process, if they would like to have a chance to read it. I know we're not open to public comment anymore, but
so once it's issued, and David, you can correct me if I'm wrong, then it's public information at that point, because it's an issued document. So at that time, it will be I can post it certainly to the current project page that we have, and it can be available there for public viewing.
Okay. All right. Any other initial thoughts with the draft from commission members? And not hearing any, Rebecca, I'll get you a chance to finalize this, pull it together, and we can probably just vote on this in our next meeting, which is Thursday, so just 2 more days. Would everyone be comfortable with that? And again, if there's something you see that you would like to see change, anything you didn't see in reading through tonight, please let Rebecca know as quickly as possible. But other than that, I think we can just vote to accept or not at our next meeting.
David, does that sound appropriate, or is this something, if the commission has no questions on, they should be voting this evening?
The commission can proceed in either fashion. You have until Tuesday of next week to meet the requirements under the regulations, but no need to cause me any anxiety in cutting it too close to that. So you've got your meeting scheduled on Thursday. You can do it tonight, or you can do it Thursday as well. If you want to give commissioners a time to review it again, provide any additional feedback they might have to Rebecca, or Rebecca may have some edits of her own, that additional things that she wants to incorporate there between now and Thursday. So you can certainly do it on Thursday if you like. If you just want to move on and take this thing off your agenda, you can do it tonight as well.
Okay. I'm comfortable with either way that the commission feels, and I appreciate that commentary, David. I would like to stress and respectfully ask that the commission be respectful as well, is once the commission votes, we need the wet signatures as soon as possible. And I need to stress that again, as soon as possible, so that it can be issued before that 21-day deadline, which is next Tuesday. So that's what I would like to stress. It doesn't matter either date, whether it be this evening or Thursday, but as long as the commission feels that they will be able to sign the document before Tuesday, that is great.
Well stated, Rebecca. I will have no problem doing that, and I will make every effort to make sure that I do that. It feels like there's a few things we're closing out on Thursday night and getting our final I's dotted and T's crossed. And so right now, I would say let's just wait and vote on the final one, seeing how we do have a meeting. And that gives us 4 days to get in and get it signed before we run up against anything. Unless other commission members, if anybody really wants to vote tonight or has a strong feeling, I would just hold this one until Thursday.
So we're gonna hold off till Thursday, but we have to sign it before next Tuesday.
Depending on what we vote on, if we vote for it on Thursday, yes.
Yep.
So either Friday or Monday, if you can get down to town hall.
Yep. I will also have it.
Do we have to vote in
available.
front of somebody, or is that you're gonna leave it in the box out there to sign, or?
I believe it's just the chair will be, no, actually, no, I don't believe it needs to be notarized. David, can you correct me if I'm wrong on
I don't
that?
believe so.
So you're just gonna leave it in the
Commission.
box, leave it in the
Yep.
box on Friday, and we'll go in and sign it the way we do the normal, okay.
Yes, but just very
Yes.
important, you don't forget to sign it.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, there will
I
be
have to
lots
show
of
up at your door
reminder
and
emails.
threaten you, yeah.
I know where you live.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. All right, so I think that's all. We don't really need to vote to hold it, or yeah, it's already close. We don't really need to vote to continue either. We just need to go ahead and close it out, which I think we can do on Thursday.
Yep, I would say it can be tabled until Thursday. They don't need a formal vote, correct, David?
Good question. I would take a formal vote just to continue the deliberations and vote the decision on Thursday. Doesn't hurt you, except for the 30 seconds it takes to do the vote.
This
So
is
that would be
true.
my suggestion.
Thank you.
All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue deliberations for the public hearing regarding the issuance of a notice of intent filed by David Russell at Turn Left LLC for proposed Still River Commons until our next public meeting, Thursday, January 21st at 7:30 p.m. Is that my opening?
Yeah, that would be fine, but I believe because it's not a public hearing, it's not required to even have a time and date certain. But 7:30 is appropriate.
Okay, so motion stands, but time amended to to be determined at our next meeting. So do I hear a second for the motion to continue the deliberations for Turn Left LLC until our next meeting, January 21st?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Jeff Bryant,
Aye.
Emily Winter,
Aye.
and William Payne,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. And thank you, David.
You're welcome. Thanks, folks. Good to see you all.
Thank you,
You as
David.
well.
All right, and Emily, while you were looking for our visual aids earlier, your compatriots were reading through the minutes and familiarizing themselves so they would be ready to go with any corrections. When I ask, anybody have any questions, edits, or comments on the minutes for our January 15th, 2021 meeting?
January 5th, sorry.
I am so sorry, January 5th, 2021 meeting. And Rebecca, I did not.
Okay.
I did not have any questions or comments. Those lengthy meeting minutes.
No comment from me.
I'm all set.
that case, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes for our January 5th, 2021 meeting as drafted and submitted at the all those in, I'm sorry, do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Jeff Bryant,
Aye.
Emily Winter,
Aye.
William Payne,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Perfect, thank you. Regarding a couple brief updates, the volunteer land steward position is still open and applications are welcome. We do have our self-guided tour still up at Houghton Farm Conservation Area. Again, I will be with the Bolton Trails Committee. We'll be working on more self-guided tours for each of the conservation properties. Additionally, the commission, hopefully at the next meeting, will be reviewing the operation and maintenance plan drafts. And I can send those to you again if that makes more sense. And that's just to have items in place to ensure that the commission is comfortable with how things are being addressed and maintained on properties. And if there are any suggestions, they are welcomed as well. And then lastly, we've had a few issues. We've had signs removed at Annie Moore Conservation Area again. So I will be monitoring that. And we have had some trespassing on the wildlife sanctuary that was graciously donated to the town from Mrs. Bonazzoli. So I will be monitoring that as well. And those are my updates.
Thank you.
Yes.
Does anyone else have any other new business this evening? All right, hearing none. I'd like to make a motion that we hereby adjourn our January 19th, 2021 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I
Second.
hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, Jeff Bryant,
Aye.
Emily Winter,
Aye.
William Payne,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well for that one. Thank you all very much. Rebecca, again, thank you for all you do, and we will see you in 2 nights.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Night.
Bye.
Good night,
Good night,
folks.
everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.